I ain't tryna bring you down, but for real, you might as well give up now. Think you got a chance, but I don't see how. Got a real tight grip when I hold that crown. My life been good and bad and all around. The more things I lost, the more I found. One thing I taught myself to do, no matter the problem, refuse to lose. So, how you want it, man? You can choose. If you can't take the heat, don't light the fuse. See, I walk in slow and ignite the room. Like fire, everything I touch, I consume. I'm getting up while y'all just snooze. While you make breakfast, man, I'm on the move. I'm the first one in and the last one out. Whoever owns the place gotta drag me out. In me I trust, yeah, I smell like success, this Elon Musk, huh? Everybody wanna be like us, we don't stop cause the top just ain't enough, huh? I ain't never gave no fucks, I ain't scared, man, you know black men don't blush, huh? Came here ready to fight on this night, you better just run for your life. Won't you come and see what it's like, living by the rules that you write. You ain't all those lavish delights, now you had no back in sight. All the little lies you recite, just makes all the savage unite. Usually I'm very polite, but I'ma get savage tonight. Even when a dog being nice, every single dog gonna bite. You might think I'm wrong, but I'm right. Just let it get a strong appetite. I'ma let it breathe just a little, give it to you strong, heavy metal. I don't make a sound when I strike. You better just run for your life. Run for your life.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here. So, we're going to do another weekly news recap on Enemy Lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. And that statement's getting more true every coming day.
Truth might nearly be illegal.
Yeah. I mean, they have completely removed, social media, that is, completely removed news stories and unpersoned people, way more important than us. And at one point, if they ever draw their attention to us, we'll be gone too. So that's why you should probably go over to DLive if you're watching this on YouTube right now. That's the safe option, because there's not much keeping us here. In any case, I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible for as long as it continues to exist. But first, thank you, Fox, my secret co-host, Fox. How you doing?
Pretty good. I did, however, lose the show notes. I know they're on my desktop somewhere, but I can't.
That's why I was talking so strange and not following the script, because I couldn't get it to pull up. It just now pulled up.
Yeah, you sounded like you were not reading off the script, but I wasn't going to say anything. I definitely thought
Thanks.
it though.
Thanks for not calling me out, but my computer started lagging. That's why I said fuck right before we turned my audio off.
I'm literally just gonna open up a new tab to Google Drive and like reopen it. I don't know where it's at.
I don't know where this lag spike came from, but it's quite annoying. Anyways, I want to also thank everyone who makes the show possible. Yes, this show happens because of you. I hope you remember that.
Yes.
And feel bad. Kaylet, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Garcia, Thunder Erkin, who's female, and the Wyland, and all you guys who are liking, sharing, subscribing. We appreciate it. You make this show happen.
Yes, you do.
Also, what's going to be our first story? Do you have a funny clip today? No funny
We
clip?
do not have a funny clip because
We got a long show anyway, so let's
Yes.
just get right into it.
Yes, per usual, expect a good like 3 or 4 hour show.
This is a 2-hour show that's always 3 hours or more.
Yes, we always start off these shows with the intention of them being 2 hours, but well, maybe I'm lying to myself, but we do. All right. What's
I
that?
fail, but I try.
Is it better to try and fail or to have never tried at all?
Well, I mean, is making a 2-hour show a 3-hour show a failure? Truly?
No. Alrighty. Well, our first story today is USA Today and Snopes were fact-checking, quote unquote, Mr. James O'Keefe at Project Veritas. So we have a little video that we're going to start off with, which is probably why we didn't have a funny clip, because we're going to start off with an actual clip of what happened to Project Veritas this week. And James O'Keefe did a little video summarizing it, and why re-summarize it ourselves when James did it for us, and we will commentate afterwards, because we're commentators, not summarizers.
Yes.
Yes, I'm justifying laziness. Get over it.
1984 isn't just the year that I was born. What we're seeing now isn't just allegory. We've reached the tipping point of the future that George Orwell prophesied. On Facebook, just now, everyone who ever shared that Minnesota ballot harvesting investigation has received a notification, and you can see it on your screen here. Quote, false information found in your post. This has been posted under every single person who posted that video. It says independent fact checkers at USA Today, there's a reputable publication, say information in your post is partly false. To stop the spread of false news, we've added a notice to your post. You can check out additional reporting from independent fact checkers. So who are these independent fact checkers and who fact checks them? Let's go look at this USA Today article. In this USA Today article, it says, fact check, no proof of alleged voter fraud scheme or connection to Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, in this USA Today article, they say this, quote, it all depends when the Snapchats were filmed, which is impossible to verify based on the videos. Project Veritas claims, without proof, that they were on July 1st and 2nd. Well, that's rich, because on the Snapchat, you can actually see the dates. This is a matter of record. The guy posted this to his Snapchat. We pulled it on July 1st and 2nd. It says it right there. You can see the dates. And USA Today is just saying without proof. Well, what they're saying is without proof. What they're saying is without evidence. What USA Today is doing has no grounds. But they're just saying the opposite of what is incontrovertibly so in the Snapchat clip. USA Today also says, quote, other footage like Muhammad's Snapchats may have been taken out of context. For example, those clips, some of which appear to depict him handling absentee ballots. They don't appear to depict him. He actually is doing this. What possible evidence do you need other than the man holding all those ballots at 2 a.m.?
2 in the morning, still hustling.
Or in his car with ballots all over his lap and his friend's lap and the dashboard? What other evidence do you need? What context could possibly exist that could excuse that if the Minnesota law says having more than 3 ballots in your possession is against the law? The Minnesota trial...
Just commenting on that a little bit right now, because we're kind of doing this one first because this is the theme for the night is the media just lying about everything, which we kind of did that last night. We're doing it again tonight, but we are at the point now where somebody holding a smoking gun is, from the media's perspective, no longer proof or evidence that they just fired a shot.
Yeah, it's like literally a guy on camera saying, "I'm breaking this law. Look at all the evidence of me breaking this law."
Dyer
Look how
said
cool
without
I am."
evidence.
Yeah, look at how cool I am, hustling,
Yeah.
paying for these ballots in your face, and mostly doing it not in English, thinking they're going to get away with it, and that's not evidence.
Yeah, and I believe the New York Times story that came out when these videos first came out, which you're going to talk about here after we get done watching James here. I believe one of the things in the New York Times article said that the guy in the video said that he was doing these things without evidence while he was videoing himself doing these things, which was just like a whole other level that like you are. This is what the media and the elites think of you guys. You are not qualified to know what it is that you are doing. You are saying without evidence that you did a thing. You're not qualified to know if you did that thing or not. Just
This
so
is
you
a
know.
person of color, I remind you, and
Yeah.
the white elites at the New York Times are saying this guy is not smart enough to know what he's doing.
Like not being qualified to tell someone what you yourself have done. Like that's a whole nother level. That's a whole other level there. All right, let's finish watching this clip.
Court that ultimately put that did not overturn the statute. It merely temporarily restrained the Secretary of State from enforcing that law. Therefore, the actions of Levin on that tape are illegal, and it says July 1st and 2nd. So these fact checkers are themselves engaged in fake news. Who's fact-checking them? Facebook.com. Perhaps the most shocking part of the USA Today article is them recycling the New York Times headline that the New York Times is in the process of retracting. This is the researchers claim video as part of a, quote, coordinated disinformation campaign. That supposed coordinated disinformation was based upon media embargoes ahead of time. That's not disinformation. That's asking people for comment. But most remarkable about the New York Times story is the New York Times was coordinating with Stanford Election Integrity Project as part of their own disinformation campaign. That admitted to us by the New York Times General Counsel David McCraw, who admitted that it was thoroughly misguided. It was academic speculation what they did. So they were doing their own disinformation on Project Veritas. They're projecting onto us that which they are doing. They are engaged in disinformation to try to discredit us, to lay the groundwork for our real reporting to not be disseminated through social media. It is what it is. I've got people texting me across the United States right now. I just got a text from someone in Pennsylvania. They said, our station in Scranton is getting our Facebook page censored for sharing our video. Ladies and gentlemen, we have crossed the tipping point. This is unbelievable. I have never seen anything like this. Never in my career. Are they able to take apples and make them bananas? Say that up is down, left is right. It's straight out of the manual, the Goldstein manual, in 1984. Quote, to tell deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them, to forget any fact that has become inconvenient, and then when it becomes necessary again, to draw it back from oblivion for just so long as it is needed, to deny the existence of objective reality, just like that Snapchat timestamp, and all the while to take account of the reality which one denies. Even in using the word doublethink, it is necessary to exercise doublethink, for in using the word, one admits that one is tampering with reality. USA Today, the New York Times, and Facebook are tampering with reality. This isn't pretend. These people are on tape. Objectively. It's real. It's incontrovertible evidence. And I would swear under oath in a court of law as to that, as would any of my colleagues. We are in 1984. The solution? We're going to sue the bastards if they don't correct this and correct it immediately.
I love James. I used to work for James. I've done I did some undercover work for him way back in the day, way back before he was James O'Keefe. He had cells at a lot of the major universities, and we would go out and just various projects trying to get the diversity and inclusion departments, get them trick them into doing lies, stuff like that. I've done some hidden camera work for him. I managed his iCloud for a little while. I had unrestricted access to James O'Keefe's iCloud at one point in time.
Wow.
But enough of that.
So I thought it was important for us to go refer to the New York Times article that's being referenced here. So they in the article they suggest that O'Keefe may have informed Trump Jr. and Mike Lindell and others before they made the public release. And to that I say, so fucking what? Okay, this is a common practice in news media where they have to tell people about, kind of generally what a story is about for them to question them, right? So, or to do interviews. So they end up telling people, hey, this is what we're doing a story on, kind of get comment, and thus that person knows what the story is beforehand, and sometimes even provided the materials to know what they're commenting on. And then that means they know about the story when it comes out, before it comes out, but they're asked to not publish anything until the news agency that's doing the interview has the opportunity to publish the story first. That's not something that's done by just O'Keefe. That's done by every media company ever. It's not strange for some individuals that were asked for comment or are, they might be, including in the story to know about it beforehand. It doesn't change the veracity of the story. It doesn't make it less true just because they told people that they were going to do the story. And the implied argument that, they told other people, so it must be a conspiracy, thus it must be false, is idiotic. Particularly when you know that the left-wing media do this all the time, but they actually do it to a level that is embargoes
are used all over, not just in news industry. That's something that's very common in the tech industry and just products in general. Is you'll have video gaming and stuff like that. You'll have the developers will send out copies of the game or a sample of the hardware, and they'll let the various tech medias play around with it so they can do reviews, but they have an embargo where they can't release those reviews into a particular date so that they can all have a chance to release them at the same time and no one's getting a scoop on anyone else. And that seems to be what James was doing there. Again, requesting comment from I'm not sure what Mike Lindell would have had a chance to comment on, but regardless, that's his thing to decide and figure out. But it's not this nefarious thing at the New York Times.
Well, Mike Lindell is a friend of the Trump family, and the Trump family were told ahead of time. Too.
Yeah.
So he was probably told as a secondary effect, right?
Yeah, and it's this is a strategy that the left mainstream media has, as they will just cite facts. They'll just say, James O'Keefe talked to this person. Isn't that conspicuous? They'll just say something and they'll just kind of have an incredulous tone and look at you you're, oh yes, yes, and stupid people will hear that and be like, I'm supposed to think that that's bad. They're trying to imply to me that there's something nefarious going on here, and I'm too stupid to realize that they're trying to trick me, and I don't realize what they're actually saying. But I'm just gonna nod my head in bovine agreement that yes, this is bad. I don't know why, but it is Orange Man bad.
Media is how they're pretending this. How the media approaches you for comment. Media, hey Trump, can I get a comment? Trump, on what? Media, fuck you, give me a comment.
Exactly.
So second thing was, the article from the New York Times suggested that the timing of the story was meant to distract from a recent hit piece targeting Trump and his taxes. It wasn't, because if you give any moment in time, there's been a recent hit piece on Trump. You can't just wait for there to be not a hit piece for 2 minutes and then publish a story. That's not how that works. So they're trying to imagine that the tax, this was to distract from the story on Trump's taxes. When in reality, no one cares about the story on Trump's taxes. It was based on anonymous sources, and even what the anonymous sources were reporting wasn't bad for Trump. They basically reported he paid $5.2 million in taxes, but only owed $750
No, I mean that's
per year.
Overt propaganda. That is overt propaganda, implying that O'Keefe is in kind of broad conspiracy to help Trump cover up his not paying taxes, when the reality is they're completely unrelated stories and Trump paid way more taxes than what New York Times said that he paid. like
Talk about making
that
it
is
without evidence.
yeah,
Right?
that is for real. And that's what O'Keefe was saying. He's like, USA Today, they're saying that we don't have evidence. Well, they're saying that without evidence because the evidence is that they had evidence.
Right.
And it gets like convoluted. And that's one of the things with the left is they will accuse you of doing what they're doing, and then when you try and say, whoa, wait a second, like I'm not doing something without evidence, you're doing something without evidence, and it almost sounds like weird. It's like, well, like I know you are, but like what am I? And it's like they set it up like this so that it's difficult to come back at them, that it seems like awkward to go back at them just because like they got to it first. And there's like a well-known like psychological bias, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's got like a particular name, but like
Primacy.
All
primacy.
Yeah, primacy. There you go. Whoever gets the story out first, like they win. And so if USA Today can say, "Oh, James O'Keefe said this without evidence," they win on the without evidence. And then O'Keefe comes back and says, "Well, no, you're saying that I said that without evidence, and you don't have any evidence of that." And it just sounds weird and convoluted. But it's true, though. It's the problem. It's true. And by getting the lie out there first, it makes it more complicated to get the truth out.
Yes, and that's also one of the rules for radicals from that the left follows, is to accuse your opponent of what you are doing. That way, when they point back that you are actually doing that, it sounds like they're just doing a tit for tat, and it's people are less likely to believe it. Thus, they will believe the lie about your opponent, but not the truth about yourself.
Yeah.
So the article went on to also suggest that the ballots harvesting shown in the video may have been legal based on the date. They say that because they don't know what the date this video was taken, that it may have actually been legal. But that required them to be willfully ignorant of the date that was on the video that wasn't added by O'Keefe. It was on the TikTok video when posted.
Snapchat.
And it shows
Snapchat.
What? Sorry, Snapchat. Sorry. So they know, if they just watch the material, that it was posted during a period where it was both illegal and also the law was being enforced. Now, that's also willfully ignorant when they say that is not not legal. Sorry, not illegal anymore, because the law never actually changed. It's still illegal to do ballot harvesting. To have more than 3 ballots on your possession at one time is still illegal there. It just during a later periods to now, it was not being enforced. So no one would go to jail for it. But that's beside the point. The date shows that it was both illegal and being enforced at the time the video was taken. And they say that they claimed ignorance, and so based on that ignorance, it may not be a problem, but they were just choosing to ignore the date.
Well, and I think it was so the state that this happened in was Missouri, or I can't remember what state that was. Either way, the state that it happened in, they, like Dyer said, like it's still illegal to have that many ballots in your hands, but they were kind of suspending the rules because of COVID so that people could go around and like help collect ballots a little bit easier. But I believe that alongside that, it was, again, it's still illegal. They just weren't enforcing it. So like there's kind of an implied, like, if you're doing it in good faith, we won't prosecute you. But if you're doing it in bad faith, like this guy is for money, illegally, then maybe we will prosecute it. So the two things with the New York Times lied twice in that one instance where they said, well, it depends on the dates. Well, they knew what the dates were because it was in the video, so that's lie number one. But two, even if it doesn't matter what the date was, it was still illegal.
Yeah, they also completely ignored the fact that it's a separate crime to pay for ballots that are not filled out.
Yes.
That's not ballot harvesting. That's a corruption.
Yes. Thank you for the lemon, the infidel. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much. That's just voter fraud. And they completely ignored that. That's the more important, damning part of the video. I don't know why anyway, so they had no valid argument. But one thing that the most important part about the New York Times article is, despite all the things that they asserted that had nothing to do with the veracity of the story or truthfulness of the story, and then just pretending to not understand the material they were looking at, they didn't say a single thing in the story was false. They did not explain a single thing that was false. Though they described it as a false video or deceptive video, they didn't explain what in it was actually false.
It was false, Dyer, though. It was just false.
Right. But generally when you make the accusation that something is false, you follow up with, like, what part of it was wrong.
So this is a pretty common case of where if you are reading mainstream media articles, you will come away from these articles knowing less than you did before you started reading them. You are unlearning things. Because you are being, one, you're either getting false reality, or you're being told things that are true, that like were true, and you're being told that those things were false. So like you will come out of reading an article with a less complete understanding of the world around you than you had before you started reading it. That is almost all mainstream media articles from almost all the outlets at this point. That is...
Yeah. Thank you, Infidel, for saying what I was thinking. Just like college. Makes you dumber.
I actually learned stuff at college. Thank you. It is of my opinion, if you made it through college and didn't learn anything, that's on you. But I think that does cover all of the SJWs.
If you accept what they're teaching you, like you got to be discerning of the information you're receiving, right? If you're not critical of information you receive, then you don't learn something in college. You learn not knowledge. You learn stuff like critical race theory, which just makes you dumber, closes your mind to other options, right? Whereas you or I go to college and we recognize the BS and accept the actual knowledge.
I go to college and I put it on a wire for James O'Keefe and go harass our diversity affairs office.
Exactly.
Somebody was asking me if I was wearing if I was an underage prostitute for him. No, my project was to because I am racially ambiguous, and so my job was to go to our diversity affairs office and tell them that I wanted Lucky Charms to be removed from our breakfast options because I found it offensive to my people. And I had a pretty long conversation with him about it, and he believed me. He was talking to me about it. It was like, yeah. So I got that on video, and that was part of. This was back at the time when, again, O'Keefe had a lot of cells at various prominent universities trying to get essentially entrapment. We were basically trying to entrap diversity affairs people into saying stupid stuff and agreeing to dumb things, and so that
wasn't hard.
It was not hard, and so I was part of many people that he had doing that all across the country. But that was back before he was well known as James O'Keefe. I think Project Veritas was still just an idea at that point too.
Yeah. All right, so that's why hopefully James O'Keefe sues the pants off the New York Times. I love when the news agencies that lie and smear and try to destroy, the little people like us. I like when they get their comeuppance and they get sued and lose lots of money for it.
Yes, Howitzer, that is important. No, Triumvirate, I know you probably think that. So there is a James O'Keefe video that did make it out that was somebody tricking university people into taking Lucky Charms off the menu. He had a bunch of people doing that at different places, and mine did not make it into the final cut. Somebody else had a much better conversation, so theirs is the one that's actually was released. That was kind of Veritas Haas's or O'Keefe's like thing at the start was like, let's try the same thing like in a bunch of different places, and one of them must land, and mine's not the one that landed. So there is a video of that out there, but that one's not me, Triumvirate.
So he says.
So I say, without evidence.
Without evidence. You don't know what you did.
I'm not qualified to tell you anything about myself.
Fox was debunked live.
Yes.
By Direwolf.
Dyer's debunking without evidence. Alrighty. Ready on to the next story?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, it's not that we're cutting this topic short. It's that the entire rest of the night is going to be about the media just making shit up without evidence. So our next story is about, continuing that vein of Orwellianness. The English language was updated in real time this week to cover up a Democrat lie. Now, we all know that the media and the Democrats are compulsive liars, but we are starting to see that they are getting much more sophisticated with their lies. Beyond how they have censored and fact-checked the Veritas story, quote-unquote there, and the Joe Biden quid pro quo scandal that we are going to be giving more updates on later in the show, and also I did like 3 hours on that with Krieg last night. This week we saw an additional escalation in the type of Orwellian authoritarianism that the left is willing to engage in.
Is that the IQ bell curve?
No.
Okay. So this week's Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett went through the ringer during her hearings with the Senate Judiciary Committee. During the hearings, she did a stellar job of showing just how smart and quick-witted she was, and the Democrats did an equally stellar job at showing just how completely uneducated, incompetent, and cruel they are. Cruel, sorry.
Yes.
Over the course of 3 days. It was an excruciating 3 days, by the way. Yeah, that definitely helps.
There's a lot of silent vowels in there.
Each senator on the committee had nearly an hour of time to question ACB. And by question, I mean just insult her constantly and not ask her legitimate questions. For the Democrats, nearly all of their questions indicated that they have no concept of what responsibilities the Supreme Court has as defined by the Constitution. I'm pretty sure the only thing we learned from this was that they've never once read that Constitution. They also repeatedly berated ACB for not answering questions about how she would rule on specific cases, a tradition for judge nominees, which has been known as the Ginsburg rule, after, you guessed it, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, their hero, who refused to give previews during her confirmation hearing. It's also what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said after she was put on the court. She said that the ideal nominee would not give previews and would not state how they would rule on a hypothetical case. So if you say that, you should believe what Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, then she was doing the exact right thing in not saying her opinion on the case, which also makes sense because they're giving these hypotheticals without enough context to actually rule on them, right?
Well, no. So ACB, she didn't just follow the Ginsburg rule because that's the tradition. She actually gave her own personal reasoning for it, and it was actually very, very well thought out. And what she said in essence was, the facts of the case. When you as a judge, you will never just make a snap decision. As a judge, you hear all of the evidence that is presented, and it is a very long, lengthy process. And then you go back and you do research. You have a whole team of people doing research. You pull together the data. You work on trying to figure out what makes sense. You go back and study the Constitution. You review everything. It's a very, very long process.
You study other decisions as well?
Huh?
You study other decisions on similar cases as well.
And it depends on what the lower courts did, and it's just not possible to say it's not responsible to make a snap decision on something, even for when you're under oath, it is not responsible to make a snap decision under oath on something that you heard 30 seconds ago. Now, she certainly has done, again, quote unquote, previews during mock trials that she discussed that a lot. She's been involved in quite a few of those that the Democrats were citing what she did during that. And in my opinion, those would probably be, again, it's case by case basis. The specific circumstances of any case are always going to be unique. And she explained that. But it's, when you're under oath like that, it is much different than just kind of freewheeling when you're in a mock trial environment. When you're in a mock trial environment, you can do and say things that you wouldn't be able to do in a real trial. That's why it's a mock trial. It's kind of for fun, and it's kind of just to see what would happen. But the hearings are not a mock trial. The hearings, you are under oath, and you are you are under threat of perjury. You are beholden to those things that you say. And so that is not an appropriate time to have a mock trial as when you are under oath, because you're literally
Right.
under oath.
And that's why I said the context, because the context is all of the arguments being made on both sides have to actually be heard and researched. That context is required for you to make a ruling, educated ruling. You can't just do it off of a quick, like 15-second description of a theoretical case.
Yes.
Even like the gay cake story, right? You can't just make a ruling based off of just the concept of that case, because there's so many different arguments that you could use as the prosecutor or the defense. You could go is it forced labor, or is it forced speech, or am I actually doing a public service argument? There's a bunch of different ways you could attack it, and until you hear the arguments and their approach, you can't make a ruling based on that argument, right?
Cakes are gay. The cake is a gay. So that's just to kind of again, that was kind of just like an aside there, but the point of us bringing that up is that this is a rule set forth by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Whether it has its merits or not, which again, ACB explained why she thought it had merits, and I tended to agree with her. It was still a tradition set up by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And that will be relevant here in a second as Dyer finishes this point.
The Democrats also repeatedly complained about the confirmation vote not being fair because, again, is because of a rule created by the Democrats when Harry Reid used the nuclear option to reduce the confirmation vote threshold from 60 to a simple majority. They're claiming, we don't have 60 votes, so it's unfair how Trump is forcing through all these nominations, and how ACB is going to be able to get forced through with less than 60 votes, this is so terrible. But it only is possible because it was the Democrats who used the nuclear option to reduce it from a 60 vote threshold down to a simple majority.
So basically what you're saying is the Democrats made up a bunch of rules over the years that benefited them, but now that those rules are benefiting Republicans, all of a sudden those rules are unfair?
Yes.
Well, that's exactly what I thought it was. Damn. So complaining about the process is not where they stopped, however, as has become also tradition during Supreme Court hearings, or confirmation hearings. The Democrats did their best to smear ACB. Cory Booker had another Spartacus moment where he implied that ACB was a racist in front of her black kids.
Which had to leave, by the way. One of the kids had to walk out.
Oh, yeah. During that was kind of sad. So I think it was the last day of the hearing.
It was pretty bad then.
One of the no, it was that was on a different day of the hearing that they walked out on. Just let me finish. The last day of the hearing, one of the Republicans asked her about, obviously this has been, a rough process. Like, how are you getting through it? Like, is there anything you want to talk about or say? And she kind of talked about, just how difficult it was. And she knew that it was going to be difficult, and she knew that there was going to be a lot of cruelty directed towards her and her family, and her and her husband had discussed that before accepting, and all this stuff. And he asked her about, how are your kids handling this? And she said, it's been hard, and the one had to leave yesterday during some questioning that he got pretty upset about. And I talked to him and calmed him down, and she's going through all this stuff, and it's not like a just anonymous unknown entity that is causing her the strife. It's specifically the Democrats. And what was particularly egregious is that in the closing, one of the Democrats, I think he was like the not the ranking member, but I think he was like acting ranking member, because I think Feinstein had skipped out on that day. But he asked her, it was after the Republicans had asked her how she was doing, and being, kind and gentle to her. Not kid glove stuff, but just being like empathetic to the Democrats calling her a racist for 5 hours. And the one Democrat hopped in and it was like, I'm sorry if you felt, like this was like a rough process or cruel. Like, I hope you didn't think that was like, I hope I didn't make it more difficult for you. Or I hope like our side didn't make it more difficult for you. And it was like, Who do you
kidding
think
me?
was making it difficult for you? And he's just pretending that it's like, oh, well, it's, it's certainly not the Democrats who are, again, continually calling you a racist in front of your black kids. Like, it's, and saying that you want to, try and kill black people. That was one of the things Cory Booker was implying, that she was in support of the police brutality killings, which is absolutely ridiculous. And this one Democrat is just acting like, oh yeah, it's just like this anonymous unknown entity that's like causing you this strife. Like, it's certainly not the Democrats, but like, man, like, we're all in this together. It's like, no, it's you guys. It's specifically you guys. It's definitely not the Republicans. It's only you. It's totally ridiculous. So we also had Kamala Harris that just kind of basically almost outright just called her a liar, which is pretty good, because after Kamala Harris, I forget which Republican it was, but he allowed ACB a moment to just kind of respond. He goes, I think Kamala just called you a liar, and ACB kind of like she broke decorum a little bit, and she goes, yeah, that's what I took from that. It's like, I mean. It's not untrue. It's so let's see here.
Not
So
wrong.
yeah, and basically all of the Democrats at one point or another called her a liar. There was a good hot mic moment where Feinstein thought that the mics were off after the hearing was complete, and Feinstein was giving her was talking to one of her colleagues and saying some choice words about Catholics on the court, which we didn't grab that audio, but it's out there if you guys want to go find it. Let's hear. But the best smear, however, the best smear of them all during these hearings definitely came from Mazie Hirono, the dumbest senator by far, whose lies were so egregious that it altered reality itself. She lied so hard that reality itself morphed around her.
Yes. Hirono's lie was an attempt to smear ACB as homophobic. You see, earlier in the hearing, ACB had made a statement that she respected all sexual preferences. The key word there being preference, which Hirono said was a term offensive to the LGBT community, and further stated that ACB knew that it was offensive and that she had used the term on purpose because she was homophobic.
Not that it was an accident, that she purposefully used it.
And she knew it, because that's the common understanding of the word sexual preference. It's not like sexual preference has been the buzzword used by the left for a long time, and that it hasn't been considered offensive until right after Miss Hirono decided it was.
Yeah, so literally no one ever at any time before that particular moment in time had ever thought that the term sexual preference was offensive. Literally no one. Several articles from as far back as last week from prominent LGBT activist blogs were found to have used the term sexual preference in a way that did not indicate in any way whatsoever that they saw it as an offensive term. And there was really no reason to go back any further than that, because it's being used as recently as last week by LGBT activist groups in a good context. Like, you can go all the way back throughout the entirety of history up until that moment in time, and the word sexual preference has been a perfectly fine way to refer to LGBT community issues. And in fact, it is widely believed that Hirono got this idea that the term was offensive from a meme that was posted on Twitter the day before, though this is unconfirmed. But there was a meme that was like kind of in the style of The Onion that was like, the Democrats say sexual preference is offensive now, and it was kind of written in the style of The Onion. And I actually at the time I did see the meme the night that it came out, and I couldn't quite tell if it was being if it was just like the left being just so crazy that it looks like The Onion, or if it was actually like meant. It's to
really
be,
hard to distinguish from the two now.
Or if it was actually meant to be satire. But either way, Mazie Hirono basically recited that meme, or I guess an ironic meme, verbatim, and it was just like, wow, that's crazy. So, Dyer, what happened after Mazie Hirono said that sexual preference was offensive as opposed to what everyone else thought it was.
Right here at But Just.
Yes.
Okay, so, but just because no one in history of the English language has ever thought of this term sexual preference was a slur against LGBT groups, the left still needed ACB to be homophobic. And so, instead of Hirono admitting that she had wrongly smeared ACB, instead, Merriam-Webster's dictionary changed the definition of the word preference to include that it was a term offensive to the LGBT community. This is so Orwellian. You can say something completely benign in the morning, and to smear you, the establishment will change the definition of the English language and then hold you to the standard set by the new definition that, even though it wasn't the definition that existed when you said the words initially, just so they can be right. So they can say whatever they want and then just redefine terms so they can never be wrong. It's the ever-present now. We have always been at war with the Eurasia. Oceania has always been our ally. Sexual preference has always been an offensive term. By the way, is this normally how you denote that something is an offensive term? To put the word offensive there in front of the synonym?
I don't know. I'm not a dictionaryologist.
So I've seen other words from Merriam-Webster's, and that is not. They don't just put the word offensive there in front of the synonym.
I don't know. It seems pretty ridiculous. So, but as you guys can see up on the screen there, though, on the left, on the fifth definition, that's the original, where it says orientation, and that is what it read. I believe that this happened on Wednesday. It was either Wednesday or Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and say Tuesday. On Tuesday morning, it was on the left, was what was on Merriam-Webster's website. On Tuesday evening, the one that was on the right, where it went from that morning, the fifth definition of preference was orientation, and then that evening, all of a sudden, it became offensive. So, also, side note, somebody in chat reminded me that Hirono also asked ACB if she's ever raped anyone.
No!
They just could not. They just couldn't help themselves. They just could not help themselves. They had to Kavanaugh her. Now, has she been raped? Have you ever raped anybody? She's not a left-wing school teacher. Jesus. So Dyer, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
You
were laughing and then you just stopped.
Triumvirate says, no, it does not. Here's the definition of fuck in the same dictionary.
Let me, I'll pop that open here quick. Let's see here. No, I do not want to ad block. Okay. So, fuck. Fucked. Fucking. Fucks. The definition of fuck. Intransitive verb, usually obscene, usually vulgar. Transitive verb, usually obscene, usually vulgar. Fuck noun. Yeah, I don't see the word offensive in here. Let me see if I can do
So
what's that?
Search for the word fag, and it does say offensive there.
Okay, that might be like a new.
Has to be now, but that's not how. I think that's a recent addition to how they are annotating this, because I know I've seen these same words not having, like, usually say this would be a derogatory term for blank, right?
Yes.
They'll just put offensive in the beginning. It's usually a sentence.
Yes. So the other thing that's kind of ironic about this that I noticed, I realized while we were writing the story is so one of the major selling points for ACB being on the court is that she is an originalist, sometimes known as a textualist. And she explained, she was actually asked to explain, what is an originalist? Like, what does that mean in English, please? And she kind of laughed. She's like, okay, like in English. And so she tried, she actually did a very good definition of what does an originalist mean in common parlance. She said it in a way that was easily understood by anybody who knows English. So what that means, though, is that she looks and reads the words with the definition of what they had when they were written. And she described that some of the ways that they might do that is they might even go back to dictionaries that were published at the time of the writing, or they'll look at other documents that were published at the time of the writing to try and get a sense of what did this word mean to the people at the time that they were writing it. And so the key part of that there is that she looks at words with the definition that they had at the time they were spoken or written, not with their modern definition. And so they're literally trying to apply to her anti-originalism, where they're trying to say that this word that she used is offensive. But from her point of view, at the time that she had used it 6 hours earlier, the definition of it was not offensive.
It's pretty meta if you think about it.
Yes.
Also, this is a great example of why textualists, why that's such an important way of viewing law, is because if you don't view all law through a textualist view, then anyone or any current people in power could just redefine terms to change the meaning of laws without actually having to pass them.
Yes, and I actually I kind of wish that they had brought that up in the Senate hearing, because there was certainly enough time after this had happened for the Republicans to have asked about that. But that's actually a really good point. There is that this is an example of why it is so important to have a textualist. So I guess in this, Mazie gave us a lesson on why textualism is so important, because otherwise, who elected Merriam-Webster? Well, nobody did. But if they can just change the definition of words, they can just change the definition of legislation, and then all of a sudden they become a super legislature that no one elected. That's if you could definitely see problems with this in civil rights legislation, where the left is trying very hard to change the definition of words so that civil rights legislation covers things like hate speech in a way that was never intended to, but they're doing that through the back door by changing definitions of words. And this is a perfect example of that.
Thank you for the ice cream there.
Don't see that. Is positive Pac-Man. Tetris Freak also gave us a lemon. Thank you very much. I would not eat that ice cream, Dyer.
I would not. I'm not gonna say it, but thank you.
AIDS positive. There we go. AIDS positive Pac-Man.
It was sus. Anyways,
You're sus. Alrighty. Well, so that was two stories to kind of prime the pump here. We've got the media just saying that having evidence with Veritas, having evidence is not evidence of anything. You can show evidence, but if you don't have evidence that you've got evidence, then that evidence that you're showing is not evidence. If you follow my logic there.
If you say you have evidence, you are not the expert on the evidence you have. Thus, it's not valid.
And then we have, in this story is, again, the one that we're on right now, is the establishment is, again, just kind of not just the mainstream media, but they certainly are a big part of it. But you also have kind of the academic establishment, which I would say that the Merriam-Webster stewards of the English language are probably part of the academic establishment. But you have the establishment set up to the point where a Democrat senator can tell a lie, and to try to make sure that that lie stays and it becomes true, they are willing to sacrifice definitions of entire words and change the language to fit the reality of what the party deems to be correct. The leader the party can never be wrong. They are infallible. And to make sure that the party is infallible, everything around them, reality must change so that no matter what they say, it is still always truth. as they see it. So just to make sure that the party is always correct, they will change the language, which is a hell of a precedent to set. But I guess it's the 1980 Brave New 451 farm. That's what universe we're living in. It's just all of the dystopias at once.
Can we just go on with one at a time? Why all of them at once?
All of them. All right.
Okay, next story.
Next story. Oh, you guys know this story. We talked about it for 3 hours last night, and we're going to talk about it for 2 hours and 59 minutes tonight. So,
hopefully not quite that long.
Hopefully not. Yes, that is a. You guys might think that up on the screen we have a picture of Hunter Biden with a crack pipe in his mouth. I assure you, we would never do that. If you think that we have done this, you are saying that without evidence that we put up a picture of him with a crack pipe, because
plus it's a meth pipe.
Clearly,
okay?
It's a meth pipe. Clearly, it is meth pipe. Because as we all know, if it was an actual crack pipe, Joe Biden's crime bill would have seen him do like 20 to life. But if you guys want to accuse us of that, you are accusing us without evidence. Even if you take a screenshot, I don't know when you took that screenshot.
It could have been any time.
It could have been any time. All right, so Hunter Biden, October surprise. This week, as you guys know, the New York Post published a bunch of emails from Hunter Biden's laptop computer. The waterlogged computer was left at a computer repair shop to recover the hard drive. However, the owner, Hunter Biden, never came back to pick up the computer or paid for the service. The pictures on the laptop contained embarrassing selfie porn and pictures of Hunter using drugs. And also pictures of selfie porn and Hunter using drugs. Kind of that Venn diagram there. There was a Venn diagram of the types of pictures on Hunter Biden's laptop. It was selfies, selfie porn, doing drugs, and then the overlap was doing drugs while porn.
There's a surprising amount of overlap.
Yes. It's almost a circle, but not quite. So more importantly, the laptop contains texts and emails that were attached to the iCloud, I believe. So that was lovely of Apple to do that for you, to sync all of your messages across all of your devices. Ooh, wasn't that nice? And so the text messages and emails, presumably from iCloud, were also on the laptop, which I believe was an iMac. Or a MacBook. There we go. I'm a PC guy. So the emails that provide proof that Joe Biden was using his son as an intermediary to profit from his political position. And Hunter had leveraged his father's position to enrich himself and presumably also his father.
Well, yes. Those two things go hand in hand. Hunter kind of looks like a Apple user. They kind of look. Just kidding.
Careful, Dyer. I've seen your screen shares.
I hate MacBooks.
I've never forgiven you for that.
So one example comes from a group of uncovered text messages, which included Hunter's daughter, who asked for emergency cash. She wrote, "Can you put $150 in my account? It was just declined for Lyft to airport. Sorry. Hunter responded, "Yes, I can, but no, Naomi, you really have to start to realize that once you are out of school, the chances of you living like your father as a billionaire when she's really giving all his money away is going to be a bit of a shock." She then wrote, "I promise I'll be much better this year." So the thing was, he's admitting in this text message that he makes billions of dollars, or millions at least. He says billions, but millions of dollars, but he gives most of it away. And you will find out later on that the source of where that money is going is his father.
So this is one text exchange that is only one clue of many that Hunter has been given to or that Hunter has been given very high salary jobs, like his position on the board of Ukrainian energy company Burisma, as has in fact been spending most of his money on his father. Hunter doesn't speak Ukrainian and has no experience in the energy industry, but earned this position because the company wanted to buy the support of his father, which, you guys, we'll briefly go over it again, but that was what a lot of the show was last night, was going through kind of that first main smoking gun evidence that was coming out of those emails, was going through all of the specific, like highly specific requests from Burisma to Hunter to ask his dad to do specific things, and then Hunter going back to them asking for specific dollar amounts related to these specific things that they wanted him to get his dad to do. We went through a lot of that in a very high detail last night.
Yeah, this is a summary.
Yeah, this will be a much quicker summary that will not take 3 hours.
Yeah, this is a quick summary because I know you guys covered it yesterday. So one email between Biden and a PR firm working for Burisma said they wanted to arrange for visits from high-ranking policymakers from the USA to provide support for the company. This email came out shortly before Biden's visit to Ukraine, in which he threatened to withhold U.S. monetary aid unless they fired the prosecutor investigating Burisma, which happened.
Yes.
And then he bragged about it on video.
Yeah. Okay, so another email dated May 13th, 2017 included a discussion of remuneration packages for 6 people in a business deal with a Chinese energy firm. In the email involved a proposed equity split, in which Hunter would be given 20% of the shares and 10% would be held for Joe Biden. In the email referred to as the big guy. So they were referring to Joe Biden as the big guy. So in the email, I said that we are going to be splitting up these business shares. That's what the equity was. It was stocks, basically. And they were going to give Hunter 20%, and then an additional 10% was going to be held for the big guy, which was widely at the time believed to be Joe Biden. And last night,
it's confirmed now.
I know, I'm getting that. Last night, when Krieg and I were talking about it, it was still speculated that the big guy was Joe Biden. It seemed pretty obvious. But as Dyer's about to tell you, we now have concrete confirmation without evidence that Joe Biden is, in fact, the big guy.
Yes, one of the other people listed on the email was able to confirm both the legitimacy of the email, that it was true, and that the big guy they were being referred to in that email was Joe Biden. And so in another email, an executive at Burisma thanked Hunter for the opportunity to meet with his father. This is meaningful, as Biden had said he never talked to his son about his work at Burisma, despite he had reportedly played golf with his son and another executive from Burisma. Is it likely that Joe Biden would spend multiple different events with executives from Burisma that his son works with, and not talk to them about what they're working on? I don't believe it.
Let's hear. So more than 11,550. You sure it was more than, or are you sure it wasn't just exact? Let's go with more than 11,000 emails involving Biden's former job on the board of Ukrainian energy company Burisma and his dealings with the now bankrupt CEFC China Energy Company. Former Governor Giuliani, Fox News, and the New York Post and Breitbart have been slow rolling the reveal of these emails and text messages a little at a time. Giuliani says he plans on dropping the most damning emails 10 days before the election. And I'll also point out, too, the batch that Breitbart is working off of, that is a completely separate batch from the ones that Giuliani had. Those are from a separate source. So Hunter has... he has a trail of bodies throughout the last decade
Yep.
of people who he has been business partners with that are now in jail. And one of these people who went to jail in 2016, who's still in jail, after he heard about these emails dropping and the scandal breaking, he contacted, I believe it was yesterday morning, contacted Breitbart, and Breitbart got the exclusive of this guy giving Breitbart his Gmail login. And this was a guy who was like one of Hunter Biden's like top business partners that had been with him for the last decade. And so all of these emails that Hunter Biden's sending back and forth, this guy is copied on and interacting with. And those emails date all the way back to as far back as 2011. And they are a little, they're a little funny because they're back so far back in time. You guys can remember back to 2011. I mean, that was a different era in technology compared to now. And it's kind of funny the language that they're using, calling their phones a handheld. And, it says sent from my BlackBerry, which I don't think there's been a BlackBerry made in the last 4 or 5 years. But it being that far back in time, they were also a lot less coy with their language. They were a little more willing to say names and specificity. And in those emails that Breitbart has, and Breitbart's not even gone through them all. So the batch that Giuliani gave to the New York Post, that and the one that Tucker has, that's like 40,000 emails. Breitbart's got like another almost tens of thousands of emails, like high tens of thousands of emails to go through. But the ones they were releasing yesterday in that batch, it was describing Hunter Biden along with this guy that's now in jail. They were working with the China Entrepreneurship, I think it was group. Yeah, so it's like the CFG or the CFCs. The China Entrepreneurship Council. So it was a CEC. So this is kind of an interest group for Chinese billionaires. And they had been trying to get meetings with high-ranking U.S. officials for years at that point. It was back in 2011, and they had been completely unsuccessful. They talked with Hunter Biden in this email, and they're going back and forth in the email being specific that they want to get meetings. And then all of a sudden, they get a meeting with Joe Biden, and they get tours of the White House. All these years of trying to get access, and all of a sudden, through Hunter Biden, they're able to get access. 2 years later, in 2013, this Chinese Entrepreneurship Council the president of that group would assist Hunter Biden in getting a major investment from the Chinese version of Lyft or Uber. It's the Chinese Uber. Hunter runs all of these hedge funds where the people putting their money for Hunter to manage are of questionable origin. And it seemed like Hunter's hedge funds were similar to the Clinton Foundation, where it was the hedge fund is just where people who want to buy influence will dump their money at. And so for not having any experience in Chinese business affairs, Hunter Biden is the primary organizer to get the Chinese Entrepreneurship Council to get a meeting with the White House they've been trying to get for years unsuccessfully. All of a sudden they get it after talking to Hunter. And then 2 years later, Hunter gets a massive investment from this Chinese Entrepreneurship League, funneling money towards his account. So one of the reasons why a hedge fund would be a really good place to launder money for this is because you can pick up brokerage fees. So this was one of the issues with some of the other funds that Hunter was managing that were getting large sums of foreign money, is because it's like, oh well, it's not my money. I'm investing it. Like they're not paying me. I'm just investing it for them. And yeah, I'm taking some brokerage fees off the top, but like everybody does that. It's called investing. Which if you're managing a few $1,000s, your brokerage fees are going to be like in the tens of dollars. But if somebody's making $1 billion investment into your hedge fund, you're going to be taking millions of dollars in brokerage fees off the top of that. And that's what was happening here. And that's what it looks like. That's what actually happened. What actually happened is that Hunter Biden got these Chinese businessmen meetings at the White House, and then these Chinese businessmen gave him a bunch of money from which he was able to take a lot of brokerage fees off the top of.
Correct. So, Giuliani and all a lot of people who are publishing these stories are being attacked, saying that this is, and this is like attacked by people that are like Tim, who tries to be a centrist on everything, as well as people on the left who are, being affected by Biden being hurt by this information. They're saying that, this is just political. It's dirty politics, how they're dropping it in October as the October surprise. Why? Why is this dirty politics? What they're publishing is the truth. And they're publishing it because at a time where people will have their mind when voting. Now, maybe you could make the argument they should have published it a little earlier because people have already started voting. But I don't think it's dirty to report the truth. I think that this is not going to be like, it's not holding back information on a criminal case because no one's investigating it because the FBI refused to investigate it. And for some reason, Barr won't investigate it either.
Yeah, so on the FBI, the FBI, which we said last night, the FBI had a copy of this laptop since December of 2019, which is, highly interesting date because what was going on in December of 2019? Oh, that's right. The Democrats were impeaching Donald Trump because specifically because Donald Trump was curious about what the hell Joe Biden and Hunter were doing in Ukraine, and Trump was suspicious of it. And the mere suspicion of it was enough for the Democrats to impeach him. And that was all going on. That was in the thick of it in December of 2019, and they would eventually get to the voting in January of 2020. But in December of 2019, the FBI had the evidence that showed that Trump's suspicions were very well founded. His instincts were good. The other pieces that we know from other parts of publicly available information, which again, it's hard to go through like the whole web of this stuff, but a lot of these emails, they're all referencing information that is publicly available. So it'll say, Hunter will say, okay, we're going to set up a meeting for this date. And if you go look at, the White House log records, you can see, oh, Joe Biden didn't have any meetings that day when he normally has meetings. I wonder what happens. What's in that gap there? You can kind of look at the negative space to figure out what happened. Or you can see Hunter is setting up meetings that are in foreign locations. And if you look at the White House logs, oh, Joe Biden's in those foreign locations. So that stuff's getting corroborated with real world events. That's as opposed to the Steele dossier, which was every real world event that it referenced did not happen or did not happen in the location and time that it specified. So the FBI, they had this information. They could have looked at this information and said, oh, wow, crap, they're impeaching the president over this. We should probably go tell the Senate Intel Committee that, hey, we got something that says that Trump was actually very well founded for this thing that you're impeaching him for. You guys might want to know about this. Except for the FBI didn't do that. What did the FBI do? Well, they've been mostly sitting on it, but we did find out that they are now investigating Rudy Giuliani. Why are they investigating Rudy Giuliani?
For reporting this.
Yes, they are investigating. They are not investigating the substance of the emails. They are investigating how Giuliani got them and whether or not he got them from Russians.
Okay, so Craig Blackbaugh, this is my argument for why it is not immoral, not particularly more moral, just not immoral for him to do it now, because they tried going the legal route. This information was already provided to the FBI, to the authorities, and they did nothing. That was the moral thing. Report it right away. That happened. They reported the information as soon as it was available. Then I think that the only thing left is for the political advantage to make sure that the Americans know what they are voting for. I think that is actually a moral thing, is to make sure that the truth is out there when you're voting. So we're not possibly electing someone who, well, I think we know by now he's corrupt. Yeah. I think we have enough of a body of evidence and his entire 47 years in government to know that.
Now, I talked to you about this earlier today, Dyer, so I want to go through why the FBI investigating Giuliani for Russian ties is ridiculous and why it is completely ridiculous for anyone in the media to be suggesting that the Russians were using Rudy Giuliani to launder this information that they hacked. So there is a theory out there that these emails were not obtained from the laptop that Hunter left at the repair shop. There's a theory that the Russians hacked these emails. And so what is being proposed by the left, by this literally crackpots, literally crackhead conspiracies, is that let me try and lay this out for you slowly, because it's important, and also I want you guys to be able to remember this, because I think it's a simple enough concept, but I want you to be able to remember it so you can, when you have like that crazy family member that's like, oh, it's the Russians were doing this, you can come back to with them, you know, if you can, you got a minute to explain it to them, that it is completely ridiculous to think that the Russians are trying to launder this through Rudy Giuliani. So here's why. The Russians have a well-known technique of gaining compromise on foreign officials. This is meant to be blackmail material so that they can control them. Compromise and blackmail is only compromise and blackmail if it stays hidden. So we are supposed to believe that and so this is what they were talking about with Trump. They said that Trump was a danger because the Russians have compromised on him, even though after we had 7 investigations over 4 years, all of it has shown that there is no there is no compromise on Trump. We actually know for sure now. We know for absolute certainty that the Russians do not have compromise on Trump.
We searched for 3 years.
They searched for it for 3 years. So the whole narrative during the Trump and all of those sagas was that the Russians had compromise on Trump and they were using that to control him. Again, compromise only compromise if it stays hidden. You gotta keep it as blackmail to use it as leverage. So as soon as it's been released, it loses all of its power. So we're supposed to believe, we know that they have no compromise on Trump. We're supposed to believe that the Russians got some pretty juicy compromise on Biden. That Biden was selling for billions of dollars access to the White House and even adjusting foreign policy around billions of dollars that were being paid out to his son and to him, or being laundered through them. So the Russians have all of this juicy compromise on Biden, and they have no compromise on Trump. And so we're supposed to believe that the Russians wanted all of this compromise to be out into the open so that it would lose all of its blackmail potential to try to keep Trump in office, who they have no compromise on. That they would, if it was really the Russians, they wouldn't have released it. They would have just told Biden after he got in office, hey, we got this on you, and we're going to use it against you. If it was really the Russians, they would want Biden to get into office, because then they would have someone in office that they could control. If they try to keep Trump in office, they don't have anything on Trump to control. So it's completely ridiculous, this idea that it would be the Russians leaking this, because they would be having a situation where they could keep this blackmail private. Again, blackmail doesn't have any power once you release it. After you release it, it's kind of lost its potential. So they have all this compromise on Biden, and we're supposed to believe that they released it all out to diffuse it all so that they could keep Trump in office, who they have no compromise on. How stupid? Do you know how stupid you have to be? You have to be this stupid. You have to be this stupid to think that is what the Russians would do.
Yeah, like 3-4 standard deviations lower.
Yes.
So another part of the story, and I might say the even bigger part of the story, because, I mean, we already know that Hunter and Joe Biden were corrupt. Trump's actually been saying this, and Giuliani's been saying, hey, I have lots of evidence that the things we're saying are true. And Trump's been saying, yeah, he definitely has been leveraging his, well, he didn't say that so nicely, but saying that he's been leveraging his political power to enrich himself and his family for a long time. Articles have been published on this topic. This is not new information. It's just been denied by the media, and they say, oh, there's no evidence of this. Trump and Giuliani is saying, yes, we have lots of evidence. So this is not news to us. It's just more confirmation of what we've already seen. Like, for God's sake, there's actual pictures of Biden with a Burisma executive with his son golfing.
Dyer said without evidence.
So this is not news to us. But the bigger, more worrying part of the story is how the left-wing media responded to it. And by that, I mean the social media, in which Facebook and Twitter and other media sources have been censoring the links to the New York Post and anyone who posted that post, and has banned the spread of this story. They've tried to remove it so no one can see it. And they actually banned the secretary, the press secretary for the president, or the White House press secretary's Twitter account, banned Trump's campaign Twitter account, and even, correct me if I'm wrong, blocked a government website.
Yes, they blocked House.gov, and they also froze the New York Post's Twitter account. So
correct.
So
those social media companies that now have, we've given them the power to determine what is truth and what is not, and they, I guess, are just allowed to hide evidence from us. Who has given them so much power? And I guess also as follow-up, how are they not a publisher?
Yeah. No, so it's really unprecedented. So one of the interesting things about this too, which I think I might have forgot to mention it last night, was the Hunter. Actually, I think I did. The Joe Biden campaign is using very circular reasoning for this. So they were asking one of the public relations people for the Biden campaign, hey, like, do you guys have any comment on this story? And the Biden campaign said, well, Twitter has already said that it was misinformation, so we don't feel a need to comment on it. Though Twitter only said that it was misinformation because they said that they needed to wait for fact checking. So you got circular reasoning here, whereas Twitter says, oh, we need to wait for fact checking, so we're going to go and say that it might be misinformation. And the Biden campaign says, oh, well, Twitter said it was misinformation, so I guess it's misinformation. And then a story gets written about that, and now Twitter has something to cite to say, oh, well, the Biden campaign says it's misinformation. So we've now just circularly reinforced that it was misinformation. You also had, it's pretty wild. So this is going on 4 days now. 4 days that this story has existed. We had the Biden town hall on ABC on Thursday night, and for an hour and a half, with breaks every 5 minutes, which was pretty wow. I thought I was watching a 5-minute YouTube video because, there was like 7 ads during it. But Biden has not been asked, and he's been on TV, he's been in interviews, he's not been asked anything about this except for one time. One time he was asked about this story over the course of almost 4 days now, and it was a very, very timid. If somebody can find that clip, actually, we'll play it. It's not a real long one. It was last night, I believe. It was I think it was a CBS reporter asked Biden as he was getting on a jet. There's jet noises, lots of wind, it's dark out, that kind of stuff. So this guy, just asked kind of meekly, like, "Hey, do you have any comment on that story about the emails?" And Biden bites his head off and gets real vicious and angry and nasty about it, and then doesn't answer anything, then gets on the plane. And it was like, wow, 4 days, and that is the only time Biden's had to make any statements about it whatsoever. Trump on the town hall night on Thursday, Trump was still getting asked questions about the Russiagate stuff. He was still getting asked questions about if he was compromised by Russia, which has been disproven 7 times, and they are still willing to grill him on that thing that never happened, that we have evidence, without evidence, that it never happened. And then Biden, we got 40,000 emails describing multiple accounts of pay for play, very specific in dollar amounts and what is required, and we know from the public record that those things were done. And they only asked Biden one timid question and just let him get away with biting a reporter's head off. Wow. Enemy of the press there.
Got the link, by the way.
Oh, cool. Let's see here. Panterabyte said, or he followed. Thank you for the follow. Let's see. Dyer sent me a link without evidence, so I'm concerned.
And Mr. Biden, what is your response to the New York Post story about your son, sir?
I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. Right up your alley. They're the questions you always ask.
And did you...
So, another smear campaign right up your alley. Jeez.
Yeah, another smear campaign. He doesn't have to deal with smear campaigns. Trump is under constant assault from smear campaigns, making everything he does, no matter how good it is, it's bad. When peace breaks out in the Middle East, he's undermining U.S. policy somehow.
Oh, also, just kind of a side note, again, keeping with that theme of the media, just unable to not tell a lie. They're just absolutely compulsive liars. So during the Biden town hall, a quote-unquote undecided voter of the people were asking questions of Biden during the town hall. One of them was a speechwriter for Obama for years. Biden... There's no way that Biden did not know who that was when he looked at him. ABC obviously knew that it was an Obama speechwriter. Everybody obviously knew that it was an Obama speechwriter. And obviously he gives Biden this like real softball question that is referencing layups for like very specific talking points that the Biden campaign has. And he's just sitting there doing layups for Biden so that Biden can go ahead and, do what Biden does when he gets handed a layup, which is... call it a lid day. But that is like the level of fabrication is that Joe Biden, they will say, oh yeah, these are just, random undecided voters. And Joe Biden will look somebody who he's worked with for 4 years in the eyes and be like, yes, I will not say anything. I'm not going to give up the game here. I'm not going to say, hey there, Stephanopoulos. Like, that's kind of weird. You said, I know that guy. Hey, bud, how you doing? Like he didn't do any of that stuff. That would have been high integrity. Because I think you got to know that everybody's going to figure that out eventually. That would have been pretty high integrity. I would have loved to see that. I would have actually given him some kudos for that if Biden had stood up and said, hey guy, listen, fat, you're I know you're not a random voter. I worked with you for 4 years. You wrote half my speeches. Thanks, man. You were a great speechwriter, but I know you're not a random voter. Can we maybe get an actual undecided voter in here? I don't want to lie to the people. That'd have been a real high integrity moment, and he would have gotten some much deserved press attention from that. But what do you need? It's this is one of the problems with communism is that I know how did I get off on that topic? So when you under the free market, you have to compete for the best product. Under communism, when you don't have to compete, it doesn't drive innovation. It doesn't drive any kind of making a better product. And now that Biden doesn't have to compete for positive press coverage, it's just given to him. He doesn't have to do anything that would warrant positive press coverage because he'll get it anyways. So he doesn't have any motivation to do any of those high integrity things that would normally get him generated good press.
So getting back to the censorship part of the story, right? We have a Republican congressman who sent letters to the owners of Facebook and Twitter to invite them to hearings to discuss possible criminal charges against their support for the Biden campaign by providing non-financial support, which still has a monetary value, by censoring his opponent's political messaging. Now, it starts off as an invite. It's still very likely they will subpoena them. It just takes time. An invite would be faster. I don't think that anything's going to happen. I'm not going to say I don't think. I know nothing's going to happen with this before the election, but they may have got themselves in some hot water having crossed the line a bit with actually censoring the president, which they said they were going to do. So this shouldn't surprise anyone. They said if Trump tried to claim he won, they would block that message. Like they already said they're going to censor the president. And along with that, Ajit Pai has said he would release clarification, like we needed clarification, on 230. I think it's already clear that they're just not following it. Is that how you would interpret it as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
The FCC is entirely pointless at this point. We talked about the first 2 years of the Trump presidency. The Republicans controlled all of Congress. We could have gotten something done then. They were not interested. The super legislature of the FCC, with the bureaucracy that's able to pass its own laws, certainly they could have done something about it, and they didn't do anything about it either. So this has been a problem that has been allowed to fester by people who, one, don't think that it would affect them, or two, don't understand it enough because they're fucking 90 years old. Which that's one of the special things about Trump is he's a young soul.
Trump, the reason why he won the first time and why he might win this time, I think he will. One of the things that helped Trump's campaign even exist was the fact that they had social media, and they used it effectively. They have to realize, the conservatives and the Republicans have to realize that they have no support in mainstream media, and they desperately need to have their voices being heard on social media, where their supporters can basically be, spread around their messaging for them because they can't be seen directly, and also their own social media accounts. They have to realize that their future depends on a free marketplace of ideas in social media. So the fact that they haven't taken any concrete action in this area is a huge failure.
Absolutely. I don't know what we do about that. I guess if we don't win, obviously it's all over. Because this was a big play. So this was a break the glass moment, unprecedented levels of censorship and manipulation of the facts. Unprecedented. This is obviously a break the glass moment, just because the social media giants are getting an actual, they're sort of getting a slap on the wrist. They've been called to come explain themselves to Congress. I think that their play is that if they thought that they could do that big of a move this close to the election, that they could do a big enough move that would assure that the people that they wanted in power would get in power, like Biden, and then they would never have to answer for it again. But if they miscalculated and their play wasn't big enough to get that to happen, then hopefully the Republicans can actually.
That's why I think they're going to double down. I think that they're all their chips are riding on this. They have to influence the election enough to get Biden elected because they know that there will be a backswing if they don't.
And it is, from the social media company's perspective, there is a very real chance that companies like Google, not just social media, but like the tech companies in general, there's a very real chance that they could get broken up as a result of this. From if America decides to elect Trump back to the presidency and elects a decent-sized majority in the House and the Senate for Republicans, there is motivation and ability to do something about breaking up these companies over the course of the next 2 years up until the midterms. And it is a very real risk to these companies, these tech giants, that if they don't play hard enough, that Biden wins, then they're of the real chance of being pretty screwed in the next 2 years. So
I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it will. I absolutely do. I think that it will be. What we saw this week is the preview for the next 2 weeks up until the election, and then it's just going to be the name of the game for the 4 to 8 weeks afterwards as the election results come in, and we're told things that are maybe not true. So we look at the Veritas tapes that we started off the show with, where James has a video of a guy that has a timestamp in the video, and the guy says, "I'm doing this thing," and then he points the camera at the thing that he's doing, and then the media will say, "Well, that video is that guy saying that he did a thing without evidence," even though the video is itself the evidence. So what you kind of extrapolate this, and it sounds kind of crazy, but is it any more crazy than the other stuff that we've seen? Is that you will see that precincts will start reporting vote tallies, and the media will say, "Well, they reported that number, but that's without evidence." Yes, and maybe it'll be worded slightly different, but that'll be essentially the effect. Is you will have precincts and states declaring that Trump won, and the media will report that as without evidence, and it's gonna be wild. It will be wild, and like we both just said, all of their chips are on Biden right now, and if they come up short, very real chance that they actually do have something real happen to them. Now, when I say chance, I mean like a 1% chance, because the Republicans are all still like simps, but it is much more. 1% is higher than 0% chance, so it's in their interest to try and double down on Biden.
Yeah. we have another bonus story that's like only slightly related. Congratulations. Here's your bonus story. Mike Pompeo says the State Department will release more Hillary emails before the election. We're in quotes. He said, "We've got the emails. We're getting them out so the Americans people can see it," said Pompeo.
Do you know
Whether
what's
it's
solve all of this? So, you know what's solve all this? Because the government emails are FOIA requestable. They're already public documents. Just make the fucking server public. Just make, when the emails are sent, they are immediately publicly available to the people. That would solve all of this. It does not fundamentally change anything about the availability of that email other than it makes it more available. It increases government transparency, and you don't have to go through the effort of FOIA requesting it.
So they were never on a government server making them it never made them government documents, and then they became part of an investigation. And investigations in the FBI can lock up and classify documents, although they don't need to be classified, and they were already declassified by the president. But that's what happened: is they're sealed as part of an investigation and not as a regular government document.
To Howitzer, for the record, simping is a particular form of cuckoldry because you are not participating, you're just watching. So simping is cucking. Cucking is not necessarily simping. Welcome to English, everyone. I know that not all of the emails, and that was part of the problem, that Hillary wasn't necessarily sending emails on government servers, and the Bidens weren't either, but that is actually something that could still be discernible if all of their emails were that were sent on government servers were immediately publicly available. You could then use the negative space. Like, Hillary, why is she sending 0 emails ever on her government account? That's kind of weird.
Well, that's the problem. She actually sent classified documents. Like, almost all her emails were sent on a private network to avoid them becoming government documents. Yeah. And she sent a bunch of classified documents. I think they enumerated, was it 18 separate classified ones?
No, I think you're missing what I'm saying. So, like, at the time that she was doing that, if they were all being made, if her government email was being made publicly available, there would be nothing on that because she wasn't using it. Correct. And so we the people would see that and say, hey, why is Hillary not sending any emails? And then it doesn't become this big scandal. It becomes immediately identifiable as a problem, and it gets investigated. And then if Biden is in particular locations and none of his emails have anything to do with that location, or if they suddenly stop for a while, again, you could build a case out of the negative space of where the emails are not and the things that the emails are not talking about.
How did I misspell Pac-Man? Thank you so much, Positive Pac-Man.
It's positive. It's positive Pac-Man.
Anyways, so yeah, they're going to release some Hillary emails. I guess we're going to hear all about the ballet lessons and stuff that she said that was in there.
That's just what we fucking need, is more Hillary emails.
Yeah, so I think that this is pointless as far as actual proving the case against her, because there's already been an investigation where the FBI already determined that she broke laws that would get people put into jail for a long period of time, but they decided not to press charges because she's rich and powerful. The law does not apply to her.
Yep. Alrighty. I think I read the story to it enough tonight, and I'm still hung over from talking about it for 3 hours last night. So moving
Next
on.
story.
Next story, Dyer said, without evidence. So our next story is a violent political left-wing revolution has been exposed. Without evidence. This week, Project Veritas published a video of the Colorado Democrat Party Executive Committee member revealing a violent intention, or the violent intentions of the far left wing of the Democrat Party. His name is Christopher Jackson, and has been describes himself as a trainer. A trainer? Mm-hmm. That guy was fat as fuck. Mentor and on-the-ground quarterback. He's definitely not quarterbacking anything.
Different kind of trainer and different kind of quarterback.
Yeah, the only thing he's quarterbacking is quarter pounders. At our Revolution protests. So he was a mentor, trainer, and on-the-ground quarterback at our Revolution protests. So our Revolution as a Democrat, nonprofit. So he is very, very much an active member of Antifa who works as an advisor or leader in multiple Democrat and activist organizations. His opinions represent a huge influence on Democrat politics, and he described 2020 as a, quote, political revolution, and that he is going to, quote, do everything morally acceptable to win. I will lie, I will cheat, I will steal, because that's morally acceptable in this political climate or environment.
Yes.
End quote.
So to them, the word moral means that there's nothing that you cannot do. You can commit acts of violence. You can lie, cheat, do corrupt things. You can buy ballots to win an election, because all these things and their philosophy are moral.
It's almost like when the Democrats lie about words, just the definition of the words changes.
Yes. We already knew that the left-wing activist groups like BLM, Antifa, and BAM is by any means necessary. Then we know all these groups have organized mass violence to achieve their political ends. This is no surprise. Violence and terrorism is instrumental to the tactics of these groups. This James O'Keefe story clearly shows how these tactics are also becoming part of the mainstream tactics of the Democrat Party. We also have the Democrat Party candidates openly fundraising for Antifa terrorism. The left-wing politicians have ignored, justified, and supported the ongoing 140 days and counting of rioting. We have Antifa members stalking and killing Trump supporters, and the media defends them as victims. Democrat governors and mayors have openly supported the violence and marched with the rioters, and have police arresting the people who dare defend themselves.
Yeah, I wonder when Merriam-Webster is going to get around to changing the definition of peaceful and protest and riot.
I mean riot.
Yes. So if you guys think that this violence will end if Trump were to lose, you are wrong. Biden winning is not the goal of these violent revolutionaries. They want to destroy this country, and Biden winning is just the next step in that goal. In O'Keefe's video, Jack says that they will, quote, occupy the White House if Biden does not sign the bills that they want signed. Let's watch.
2020 is a political revolution. I am going to do everything morally acceptable to win. I will lie, I will cheat, I will steal, because that's morally acceptable in this political environment.
This is Chris Jacks from Our Revolution, a radical left 501c4 organization bent on creating a, quote, political revolution in the United States. Jacks represents the Democratic Party here in Colorado. And Jack says a Biden administration will be used to advance his political objectives, or else there will be violence.
It's going to take a strategic hit against the 0.1% that's in charge, because that's who it is. It's killing random Nazis in the street, random bootlickers. So you want to do some Versailles shit?
Just want to, yeah, I know that, Dyer, but that's your job. So I just want to point that out again. So one of the things that you said that is, the revolution is about going out there and killing random Nazis. This guy is based in Colorado, and our story after this is about the Patriot Prayer guy that was executed in Denver last week by a Antifa supporter. So again, that when they say kill random Nazis in the streets, they call everyone Nazis, and we see this guy saying, based out of Colorado, the goal is to go out into the streets and kill random people. And then what do we see last weekend? We see in Colorado, Antifa going out and executing random Trump supporters. So just
before we move on, I told you that because I actually need to get YouTube off. YouTube, because this episode we're covering, I know we've already started, we're going to be going off YouTube. So please click the link to go to DLive. It's in the description of the video. Please hop over here. There's 7 of you guys. So hop on over. Yep. Turn YouTube off. Goodbye.